You've almost written that
You know
off.
how insane that sounds?
It is insane. It is insane.
Pre-COVID, we were turning over about 500,000 a year. As COVID came along, there was a window of opportunity at that moment.
You are sitting on a gold mine. This is incredible.
We've got 350,000 people on your email list. You press send, and
then money comes in.
money comes in. That is like a drug.
But you need balance. You need balance.
We
and you need
definitely don't have that.
Here we go. Thank you. I'm gonna hunt this. I'm gonna need it. Viewers, just stick with me on this because honestly, if steam starts coming out my ears, just bear with me, right? Today we're talking to a £15 million fragrance brand. They're spending £3 million, yes you heard that right, a year on Meta ads. But here's the kicker. This brand is only spending £70,000 on Google ads. Something's not quite right. That's going to be the conversation. Let's get into it. Welcome to Grow with Evergreen, the podcast designed to help you grow your business by providing practical insights into all things paid media, creative, and digital strategy. Every episode, we help home, garden, and lifestyle brands with their growth challenges by delving into their business, dissecting what they're doing, and defining a digital growth strategy they can take and deploy into their business. Let's get into it. Welcome back, beautiful people. So this is going to be a really interesting episode, this one. As you can probably tell, no headphones means only one thing. Yes, it is in person. I'll be bringing in Luke very shortly, but before I do, let me just set the scene, because the company we've got on today, the brand is called Valente. They are doing some stellar numbers. So they're a £15 million business. And what's really got me, and it's been a head scratcher, and I'm so excited for this conversation, is because they are spending, and they've grown, and Luke attributes a lot of that growth to Meta. One of his comments in the pre-chat chat, Meta's grown our business. We have built our business on the back of Facebook ads over the last few years. And then some, because now they're spending about £3 million a year into Meta. That all sounds well and good. It's great. If it's working, keep doing it. Fantastic. And we're going to get into what they're doing and how and why they're doing it. But for me, the real conundrum and what I think is going to be really interesting for our viewers, our listeners on the Grow with Evergreen pod, is the fact that despite a £3 million on Meta, they're only spending £70,000 on Google Ads. That to me seems wild when I consider the search intent, but we're going to get into it. Now, before we bring Luke onto the pod, we're going to do our new little segment, Darren, aren't we? We are.
Yep, it's time again.
What is it time for? It's time for our paid media mystery. Right, come on then. So what are you going to hit me with this time?
Well,
Let's
so
go.
you know, Meta's obviously a big talking point.
Well, it's going to be today, yeah.
So I thought we'd have a Meta-based
Okay, come on.
mystery.
And now Luke gets to join me on this.
Yes.
Luke gets to join us. So,
Okay,
yeah, I'll do the full
let's
intro
do
in a
it.
minute, but for now,
Okay. Yeah.
you get to join us. I'll do
Okay.
the intro in a minute, but yeah, let's...
So Meta,
Yes.
great for ads.
Yes.
But on average, how many times does a user in Meta need to see an ad before they click on it?
Oh. Okay, this is a good one for you.
Well, the classic theory would be, well, before they click on it or take action.
Before they click on it.
3.
Okay.
I'm going to go... What's the average user? How many times? I'm going to go higher.
Yeah.
5.
It was higher still.
Really?
Is it?
7.
Wow. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
7
that does
times.
7 times.
Which
Just
is
shows.
interesting.
That's what the importance of retargeting,
Yeah, well,
and
there you
that's
go.
how you're able to spend £3 million
Yeah.
on Meta. Right, that was good. Now, I want to bring Luke in. So, Luke, give us a little 30 seconds. Who are you? Your business. Over to you.
So we manufacture home fragrance, predominantly candles and reed diffusers. We started from a market stall in Greenwich Market in London around about 15 years ago. And the business was pretty small through that period until COVID came along, and it grew very, very dramatically during COVID.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where we
Give us some numbers. What was it pre-COVID, after COVID?
Pre-COVID, we had 5 members of staff, and we were... you'd have found us at the consumer shows. So whether you were at the horse trials like Badminton Burley, you'd have seen us at the RHS flower shows, or the big county shows. And we would make product during the week. We'd go out on the weekend. We'd stand in a field or in a marquee and sell it. Okay. And the business had ticked along for a long period of time like that. We were turning over about 500,000 a year. Something like that.
Right.
And then COVID came along. All the shows were cancelled. And we we took the bounce back loan. We had an online business at the time, but it was pretty small.
Okay.
Though I had a background in online, so I'd built the website, and I'd been a developer prior to kind of doing this business. So
Okay.
I was very comfortable in online and in online marketing. And so COVID came along, the shows were cancelled. We took the bounce back loan, so we took the £50,000.
Sure.
I don't think we'd have ever had that opportunity, like to have that much money to do something with. So that was the starting point. And then there was a window of opportunity at that moment in early 2020 when all the big advertisers were stopping advertising. The world felt like it was coming to an end. All the big advertisers came off the platform.
Okay.
So there was a moment, there's a huge learning curve with paid advertising, a massive learning curve. And we were doing that at a moment when it was cheaper. Because the big advertisers were not advertising. So there was less pressure on us. So we could make mistakes while with a greater margin for error.
Right.
And we did that, and we just scaled. And that first year, we started. The first week, we spent sort of £1,500 on ads.
Right.
And I mean, without looking back exactly, I mean, I think the end of that first year, we spent sort of $1.5 million on ads.
Wow.
And it was just we just rode
Seriously
this.
going some.
It was a bonkers roller coaster. And given that, I mean, our business, we manufacture everything in-house. So there was colossal operational problems to actually figure that out, that growth. So it's one thing to spend the money and to get the stock, but then we physically got to make it and physically got to fulfill it.
Yeah. Pick it, pack it, all of it.
We weren't even outsourcing fulfillment because our business model was built around this mix and match gift box. So we couldn't put that into a fulfillment house because it was too expensive. There were too many separate pick operations. So we had to we were fulfilling our own orders as well. Now, ultimately, that's put us in a really, really strong position because we own all the parts to the chain.
Yeah, nice.
And it strips out loads of costs, makes us really difficult to compete with.
Okay.
So our business model essentially is to manufacture everything in-house, strip out cost at every stage of that process in order to deliver the same quality you would get from one of the real premium brands in our space, but for a fraction of the price. And you can only buy it directly from us. So you can't go, we don't sell it to shops. We don't wholesale our own brands. So if you want to buy our product, you come back to us. And 75% of our business is returning customers. So we're really big emailers. And
wow, 75%.
75%.
There's not many businesses that 70. That's incredible. Even at your size, still 70%.
Even at our size, yeah.
Wow. So you spent that makes sense in terms of where you got started, and then but even now in the last couple of years, you've continued that momentum. You've continued to ramp up that spend even further.
It's come in waves, if I'm honest, because we were growing so rapidly that operationally that put lots of pressure on, and we went through loads of moves in that. We started off. We originally had a small unit on a farm, an old dairy farm. We gradually took lots of units in there.
Right.
And then 2.5 years ago, we moved to a 40,000 square foot site. We've got 2 buildings. And operationally, we had to figure out how to run a bigger business. So we had 2 years of almost no growth that coincided with iOS 14, massive deterioration in ad performance. We were at the same time figuring out how to run a bigger business, deal with that much stock, to deal with that many staff. And so we really stopped growing.
Yeah.
And we moved away, particularly after iOS 14, we really stopped advertising. Okay. It's really just, we had some not a great deal, certainly no new business advertising.
Sure. Okay.
We were doing some retargeting. And then this year felt like we were ready to go back to growing, and we started really scaling our spend again. And that's been an interesting journey, seeing the changes in the platform, just how difficult and expensive new customer acquisition is.
Yeah.
We've got a very strong back end. So we really understand the value of those customers, how much we can spend on acquiring them at the beginning, the fact that we know we're going to get the repeat business afterwards.
Yeah.
So we were comfortable even losing money on new customer acquisition.
Okay.
But what we found was huge diminishing returns. So you saw us scale our spend earlier on in the year right up to sort of 20,000, starting off low, really seeing it working, trending that number upwards to sort of £20,000 a day in spend.
A day, yeah.
A day,
Yeah.
all on Meta, and then seeing huge deterioration in CPAs. So the acquisition cost had gone from, we need an acquisition cost of under, our break even is about £16 of gross profit that we need to get, and we started off comfortably below that when we were spending 5,000 quid a day, and as we scaled, we saw it shoot straight past that and go up, and at the point where we were spending £20,000 a day, we had CPAs of the low 30s, sort of 33, 32, 33 pounds.
But you must have looked into that.
Yeah,
what was the reason that was happening?
We believe that there is you get massive diminishing returns on Meta as you spend more money. We don't believe it. We were testing tons of creative.
Right.
And actually what was interesting is when we started to reverse that back out again, it was exactly the same creative.
Really?
And it literally mirrored the graph as you came back down again. And we've settled in now. So we're spending about £5,000 a day on Meta, split sort of 4,500 a day on new customers, and 500 quid a day on returning, and that gives us a CPA of around between 11 and 12 pounds.
So workable for the
business. Really workable, profitable. We don't need that new customer acquisition to be profitable. Fine. But it's nice that it is.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Okay, interesting. I mean, and that it makes sense on the scale you're talking. Absolutely, when it comes to ultimately that CPA and understanding, as we would discuss it in the pre-chat, the average order value, the lifetime value, the repeat rate. You know your numbers, and that is going to be key for the scale and the size you're doing things. So that's fine. And so, you said it was this year where you tried to scale it up to 20,000 a day, and then it ran. Your CPA went up in line,
We've spent
and now it's
that
come down.
much money in previous years as well.
And same thing happened or not?
I don't think our systems were good enough to be able to see that.
Okay, so now
I also think it was more difficult. I think it's got more difficult. I think paid advertising's got much more expensive over the last. It's much more expensive now than it was a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think combine that with being far more aware of our numbers, we were more clearly able to see what was going on as we scaled.
And you do this in-house, don't you? You do all your Meta in-house?
Yeah, we didn't used to. So our first, we've been on a journey with that. So we started with an agency.
Yeah.
Then we worked with that agency we started with them doing the work.
Right.
Then we felt like we were doing more and more of it ourselves, and that wasn't working. So then we took them on we took their the head of that agency on as a consultant. So he would mentor us. We'd have an hour or two of his a week where we would bounce ideas off and do it in house. Then we decided we didn't need that, and we kept that in house. So we now that side of it we do in house.
How long has it been since you last had an outside perspective look at your Meta ads?
Beyond Facebook themselves. So we obviously have their thing. It's been a long time.
It's been a while, because I just think that might be something that the benefit of a fresh set of eyes might see things that you just can't
100%.
see. The wood for the trees.
Yeah.
So what I want that's interesting. I think I've heard similar tales before in terms of the CPA rising up with in line with your budgets and your level of investment. It's hard to be able to pinpoint. There's a few things that come to mind in terms of why that might be happening, but without seeing the account, obviously. So one thing I wanted to understand is what reliance does your business have on Meta? Proportionally, if you looked at your total sales, how much of that can you attribute to Meta?
So when so the metrics that we use internally, we take our entire. We don't trust what we see in Meta. So that's the first thing. Mm-hmm. So what we would do each day is we would take our ad spend. So broadly speaking, we split our ad spend between new customers and returning customers. Sure. So you can think of it as retargeting, but it's not as simple as that, because we use custom audiences in there, and we exclude anyone who's actually shopped that Meta believes, and so on. So we end up with an audience that is either a new or returning, is how we would define it. Though it's not, they still send us crossover.
Sure.
And we would then calculate CPAs based on those two things. So we attribute the entire ad spend for new customers to the number of new customers we've acquired on that day.
Right.
And we do the same thing for returning customers. And then, so if I had to do... So we would typically see returning customer acquisition costing us about £1.50 to £2, but it's not really costing that because we're massive emailers. So email is probably accounting. So the 75% of our sales that are coming from returning customers are being driven by email, but Meta is supporting that. It's the old analogy. I know half my advertising is working, but I don't know which half.
Which is something I literally said on the last pod we recorded. But absolutely that.
We don't cut our returning ad spend. It sits along at about £500 a day. We've tried spending more on it. It doesn't increase the value. We perhaps could even spend less on it. So I think you have to take a sort of more overall approach that if you argue, you could basically argue that our returning customer business is being driven by email. So on that basis, that's 75% of our sales. So that is driving. Right now we're doing £400,000 or £500,000 a week. So you could say that the ad spend is driving £100,000 a week for argument's sake, and you've got another 400 grand a week coming from and
it's as you say, it makes sense. You're across all those touch points, and I like to simplify things, keep it simple, and actually just think of it's good to understand in terms of your tracking. Are you using GA4? Are you using a triple whale? Are you using
so we're not great with GA4 I mean, I'm old school, and Google Analytics has changed a lot, and I struggle with the new things on that.
So what are you using?
So we are using G4, but not particularly. Most of the analysis that we do inside the business uses a platform called Madrillo. And that was built out. It's now owned by one of the big emailing companies. It's not MailChimp. I think SendBlue or SendGrid.
Okay, fine.
That is a platform that they've built, and it's very, very good for looking at cohort analysis. Say, for instance, of how valuable customers are worth over a period of time. It's very good at splitting out new and returning customers, hence our focus on that. So if I'm honest, I'm not spending, I spend virtually zero time in Google Analytics.
In the old GA3, did you use that more regularly?
Yeah, the older version.
Right. So this is something. So again, we will take this offline, but something that I'm more than happy for us to have a conversation. We could potentially help you with, because I think you should have GA4. You should be leveraging GA4 to get a view into your data, but it will only work if you get it set up correctly.
We don't know. I mean, we still feel there's a massive gap in our ability to understand the data. We've got it's a separate topic rather than paid, but we've got an agency that handles affiliate for us.
Right.
And our frustration was we simply couldn't see how that business was performing. And they were asking us to make commercial decisions on, to support this publisher or to support that. And we couldn't evaluate it.
And the reason I think GA4 is an interest, I mean, there's, you've got triple whale, there's lots of other these tools that ultimately do much the same stuff. But the reason I think GA4 for you would be an interesting one, but it needs to set up correctly. And, we can do that, but I think getting that set up is going to give you a view into the data, because obviously now and you're absolutely right, what you felt in terms of from GA3 and GA4, that GA3, we all had that. We all loved that. We had it for a decade. It was beautiful. It worked. And that was really a tool that felt made for marketers, whereas GA4 feels like a tool made for analysts. And us mere marketers are not analysts. So it's more technical. That said, you can extract some absolute gold from that if you get it set up properly. So I think that's worth doing, because I think one thing that, again, a view into your data, which I think you'd find quite interesting if you're not already getting it, is the data-driven attribution as far as GA is telling you. Now,
because we've massively struggled to understand. Like we can understand. The problem you've got is the last click. So, that's basically how most platforms, you've got everybody claiming credit for it. So, you drive traffic from email and they claim the credit. It comes from Facebook, they claim the credit. And ultimately, that the last person who sent it, you've got visibility, but actually
it's all the touch points. It's all the touch points before.
And we can't see that clearly enough.
Okay, but does your tool that you're using report on last click?
Yeah, it's on last click.
Okay, this is a problem. This is a major problem.
This is like,
problematic. We need like a red warning, like siren going on in the podcast now. Like, woo,
this is a problem
because if you're reporting on last click, you are so not getting the full picture.
I know. It's when I look back, when I think about how weak we are in
Yeah,
certain
yeah, yeah,
areas.
yeah,
It
yeah.
makes me realise how at heart our model is
Yeah,
supporting
yeah.
us, but actually we're being successful sometimes despite ourselves.
Because so you're absolutely, there's a few things you've said there. So you're not relying on Meta to self-report and rely on that data to inform, because Meta will over-report. Of
course they do,
right?
yeah,
It will,
100%.
all of them. They're all walled
They're all
gardens.
at it.
They're all will
Yes,
over-report,
yeah.
right? Every one of them. Google Ads, everyone will over-report.
Yeah.
So, and even GA4 is not going to get it right. So you're not going to have one. You're not going to be able to, unfortunately, get a single source of truth that's going to give you the absolute, this is gospel, this is exactly what's what. But what you absolutely need to be doing is leveraging data-driven analysis to understand the user journey, particularly because you've got such a focus on CPA, so customer acquisition. You need to understand what are the touch points driving that. You get GA4 set up really like properly within 90 days, I can pretty much guarantee you it will give you such insight into the true user behavior and the multiple touch points across different things. And I think because you're not doing that and you're relying on it, that's why, into your mind, you've got this, such a focus and incredible spend on Meta. Also, email. Now, email is going to be amazing. But it's going to be one of them. So for me, what I would be thinking, and the way GA4 would help you do this, is to group the different types of activity you're doing. So have you ever heard me talk about the backbone of digital marketing? Have you ever talked about, So thinking, put your paid. So I'd want to understand from a data-driven analysis perspective, how reliant does the data say we are on paid in terms of all things paid? That's all Meta, Google, affiliates, everything, group it together. Then, crucially, because we know that's going to be the lion's share, right? That's going to be a high proportion. But then what we want to understand from a data-driven perspective is what reliance does the brand have on traffic that you own? So what is our brand visibility? Yeah, our actual brand.
I think our brand, because of the bulk of it coming from email, we're not so reliant on
Fine.
on
but
Facebook.
we need to understand that.
Yeah.
We need to get numbers on that, because it's going
100%
to
agree.
And then it's about the traffic that you nurture. So nurture is your social media. That's your email. That's going to be a big one. That is going to be a big one. But again, we want to see what that looks like from a data-driven perspective.
Yeah.
Then you want to look at the traffic you're earning, which is through your organic. Because before we go on to the Google Ads, which I want to talk about, but from an organic perspective, do you said when you arrived today to record this that you'd had a little peek into GSC based on listening to another pod.
I listened to one of your other shows, and so I've got a massive distrust. I said to you earlier, I've got a massive distrust of organic traffic, because I've been around a long time online, and it's just, you can't rely on it, and so on. So we on purpose set out not to worry about organic. If we got any of it, it was a bonus, but we didn't build the business on doing it.
Yeah.
I had in watching one of your podcasts, I suddenly went and looked in Google Console, started looking at things, and suddenly realized actually we were ranking one for loads of quite useful keywords to us.
Amazing.
And we weren't doing anything with that. And we weren't even thinking about that traffic and actually shaping what happened to that traffic, or what those pages looked like. It was completely random.
So one of the key, I don't know if you did this or not, but one of the key things you need to make sure you're doing is, did you go in there and you can exclude your brand? Because then you'll get a truer sense of.
No, I was looking for non-brand. I was filtering through, just looking for anything that wasn't.
You can just
brand.
apply a very simple filter.
That.
Yeah. So again, the key things to do in Google Search Console, for those listening, I bang on about Google Search Console. It is a treasure trove of goodies in terms of how people are finding you, what you're visible for, etc. You can in there. The key things you need to make sure you do next time you go and have a look at it. Make sure you filter by UK only data if you just want to get the domestic market and understanding of that. Then you can apply a very simple filter. At the top it says add filter. You click that, click query, and then query not containing, and put in your brand name. Because then what you will get is a truer sense of, in the UK market, how visible are we organically for all of the search terms. What are we coming up for? How are people finding us? What are people searching? That can inform your paid side. Equally, the paid stuff you're doing will inform the organic side. So the two should be talking. And you can extract. Now, again, going back to GA4 and why having data-driven attribution, having it set up and leveraging and utilizing data-driven attribution is, not only will it proportion the sales you're making, what and why and where, but what it will also do is it will give you insights into how people are, what level of volume of transactions you're making, the conversion value, but also proportionally, which traffic quality performs better. So you'll be able to see, right, from email, what's attributed to email is X amount of value, and we can see that is converting at this rate. And it's going to be, it's warm traffic, so it's going to convert well. But then organically, you can see what's what. And I think there's clues, as there is with everything. I think the reason because you're not doing GA4 and you don't understand your organic visibility, it's almost safer. And it makes sense knowing that, which I didn't know before we started recording this, but it makes sense now knowing some of those things as to why you're so heavily reliant on Meta and you're not doing Google Ads. Because I want to move the conversation on to talk about Google Ads. Yeah. So you said before, you're only, really for you, I mean, for most small businesses, 70K is a good spend on Google. Yeah. For you, it's pennies.
Yeah.
So why is that? Why are we only spending 70K on Google Ads?
So we've periodically tried to make, so that spend is basically brand spend.
Fine. Right? Fine.
And we have periodically tried to spend on Google.
Yep.
And we've scaled that spend a bit, and we suddenly found it. We kept running into a problem where it ran over the budget. So I think at the time we'd scaled the spend up to a spend of perhaps £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 a day.
Okay.
And then suddenly it would spend that £5,000 by 8:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And then we would like panic, like what's gone on? No sales going on, just suddenly spending £5,000. We would complain to Google about it. No satisfactory response. That was with the Performance Max campaigns.
Okay.
We would then switch that off.
Right.
Really nervy about it. Turn it back on again. It'll be fine for another 2 weeks, something like that, and bang again. Suddenly, exactly the same thing. Yeah. And we lost all. So we had two things going on. On the one hand, we had a lack of understanding and lost confidence in the platform. Okay. And secondly, we felt like that we were selling a product that required. There's obviously search intent for people searching for, say, a reed diffuser, which is our best-selling product.
Yep.
But when they actually find that, when you search for that and it comes up with a load of things, we just never felt like that was going to perform. We couldn't figure out how to drive new customers from that. I begrudge paying for my own customers back. So, you're
doing that on Meta.
Yeah, to an extent, but we're only spending £500 a day on our own customers coming back. So,
how do you know that? How can you split it?
Well, because I can see the two spends.
Yeah.
So of the £5,000 a day that we spend,
right?
The ballpark, we officially it's allocated 500 to existing customers, 4.5 to new customers. The fact is that there is some crossover. So when you look at the sales data from what we've supposedly spent on, say, existing customers, it sent us some new. And conversely, on the other side of the coin, when we look at the data from returning from new customers, it's also sent us our own customers back. But it's. I do resent paying for our own customers back when I've got them for free on our email list.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and your email, this is not, but I just find it interesting. But
Meta, Google, we've got to get right. Like, I would quite happily spend an unlimited amount of money on ads, providing we were at break even or better.
Yeah.
Whether it's with Google, it's with Meta, it's with anybody. We, at the moment, haven't managed to make that work.
Before we go any further, are you enjoying today's episode? If so, you'll love our other show, Tea Talks. They're short, informal chats where the Evergreen experts and I share actionable nuggets on all things paid media, creative, and digital strategy that we use daily when growing our clients' businesses. And best of all, much like this podcast, it's completely free. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, see the link in the description. Now, let's get back to it. What have you tried to make that work? You tried some Performance Max. I mean, Performance Max, do you understand how Performance Max works?
Not massively. Okay. So it's not my area. It's definitely not my area.
But again, at the minute, you're doing your Google. So your Google Ads, just so we got it clear. So your Google Ads, basically at the minute, you're running what? A branded search campaign.
Branded
effectively.
Yes.
Right, fine. And you've dabbled with Performance Max, but then got nervous and turned the whole thing off, which is going to completely screw your Performance Max. That's just never going to work.
Should we, just in that exact analogy, should we have just left it running and it would have evened itself out when it was spending like that erratically?
I can't tell that until I'd have to have a look at it to tell you. Because, so the way, right, just to give you a sort of a 101 on Performance Max.
Yeah.
So Performance Max Google's got an entire inventory of where it can show your products, and get spend your ad spend. Performance Max is an all things to all people campaign type. So it's essentially, think of it like a bucket, and Google's gone, well, our entire inventory, the search results, Gmail, display, or shopping, everything, we're going to put it all into one campaign type, and then we're going to say, Google's going to say, essentially, give us a load of assets, give us your logo, give us some headlines, give us some imageries, just give us a whole suite of assets, tell us what you want to achieve, and then leave it to us, we'll go off and do our thing. So it's full autopilot, and it's essentially a black box within a black box, because one would argue Google Ads is already a black box, right? Yeah. So when it came out 3 or 4 years ago, right, marketers hated it because we were like, well, we already don't, there's already enough we don't know. Now you're going to tell us there's even more we're not going to know in terms of how you're going to split it. Now, over the last couple of years, there's been a changing tide. Google have, owing to feedback and absolute reluctance from marketers, paid media marketers, to leverage it or to rely on it, Google have opened up the taps and gone, well, we'll give you more insights.
Okay.
A combination of that and improved performance, because they released it and it was frankly a dog's dinner when it first came out. It's got a lot better.
Okay.
And so marketers and brands have a lot more control, and we can now see. Now, what you need to be thinking about with Performance Max, and what you need to understand, is Performance Max is a conversion hungry campaign type. So it will absolutely optimize and go after your what you deem a conversion. So in this case, you'd be saying, well, it's a sale. I only want to count a sale because you're getting the volume in, fine. So,
but in truth, that's a dangerous metric for me to do on advertising, because that has the ability to just drive my own customers back to me.
No. But. So with Performance Max, with anything in Google, you just exclude your existing people that are searching for you by brand. So there is a way you would apply a brand exclusion list into Performance Max to do exactly that, because absolutely, if you let it, Performance Max will go, well, I'll take all the brand search, I'll gobble all of that up, I'll make my data look for Performance Max, look amazing. So you would apply, and we do loads of Performance Max for our clients.
And can you exclude custom audiences as well? So could I exclude my email list as well?
You could,
or the shopped part of my email list.
So you could, so there is, you can basically exclude to a large degree pretty much what we'd need to exclude to make sure we're not basically cannibalizing it. Because what we want to leverage from Performance Max is essentially, like you're doing Meta, go and find me new customers. So we can, depending on how we'd set it up, depending on what data you've already got in your system, etc., we can, to a large degree, you can even within Performance Max align it to say, go and find me new customers, and you can actually weight the system, but you need a certain volume of data to be able to do that, which you would have. So yes, you could do it, is the short answer. So but again, it needs that expertise to be able to set it up, to get it right. If you then get it set up, what you've then got to understand is Performance Max has the longest lead time of any campaign type, right? Because it's the widest inventory. So
we're quite comfortable with that. I mean, our meta targeting is open targeting, female.
So
exactly.
So you're gonna want to factor in, an 8-week lead time at least, just for Google machine learning to kick in and start to learning. So you're turning it on, turning it off is going to cause absolute havoc. You're never in a month of Sundays going to see a return on Performance Max if you switch it on, switch it off. Now, what you also then would very quickly be able to determine with Performance Max is, and what we do is we end up having, you can either have basically what we refer to as asset-led or feed-only. What that basically means is, because now Google Shopping, you can do it, but Google Shopping for pretty much the last 3 or 4 years, Google have said if you want to run shopping, you can't now do standard shopping. That's a thing of the past. Smart shopping was upgraded to Performance Max, and Google for a while said the only way to run shopping ads to get your product, and the shopping ads in the search results, it shows shopping ads are great for e-commerce because it shows the picture, the product name, and the price. All the things the customer wants to see. Oh, that's the product I want. That's the price I'm happy to pay from that brand. Bang, I'm in, done. The only way to leverage the shopping ads for a while, or there was another way, but this was the main way, was through Performance Max. So what marketers have ultimately gone and done is said, well, we're going to strip out all of the assets to essentially force Performance Max to only show the shopping ads. So you get rid of everything else. Still Performance Max, but you cull everything else. That's what marketers now, we would refer to as feed only. So what you should be doing with Performance Max is running basically an experiment to see what performs better. When I load up all the assets, so visually I show the product, I show this, I have all of the titles and the headlines and all of this good stuff. Or is it all about the shopping feed?
I think what strikes me when you talk about that is the depth of learning that's required. Now, and I think that, that's what prompted me to come and talk to you guys, because I think that we have that level of understanding of Meta because we've been at it a long time. I'm sure, like you said earlier, there's opportunities for us to improve that. But I think we're fairly comfortable in Meta. The level of learning required for us to figure out
That's
Google
exactly it.
is beyond. We don't have the time to do that, and we don't need to figure it out.
But you don't. You say you don't need to, but then
we can have someone else. We can use an agency to do that. And I think we're back in the point whereby, we had a sort of like we like doing things in house, but I think the complexity now of Google paid ads is we shouldn't be even trying to do that.
It's a different. It's exactly one of the things I said to you when you first came in today. Is I said, who's on the team, who's doing the marketing. And you were, we've got a small team that's doing this, that, and the other. I mean, fair play to them because they sound like they're having to spin all the plates. There's a reason that agencies such as yourself will have dedicated paid search and paid social experts because they are completely different animals. Performance Max has evolved massively, over the last 2 or 3 years and got a lot better. But you've got to be in it. It's like everything. You've got to be in. You've got to be doing it to know how to leverage
the nuances of it.
Hugely powerful. And even in recent weeks, there's been massive changes to what Google have gone on the record to say Performance Max can now do. Essentially, Performance Max was for a long time the de facto and default when it comes to shopping results. That's now as of very recently, at the time of recording, has changed. And Google have said that Performance Max is no longer going to be the default when it comes to shopping results. Now, if you want to run smart shopping campaigns, that's fine. You can run shopping campaigns in isolation outside of Performance Max, and we will let ad rank determine where you sit. That, for paid media marketers, is a massive shift from Google based on the last 2 or 3 years.
I think one of the problems you butt up against, though, is there are a lot of agencies out there, and a lot of them are not good at what they do. And it's very difficult as a brand owner to differentiate and figure out. And we've had very bad experiences with agencies over the years who have sold us a line. We've gone and done something with them.
Sure.
And it just doesn't work. And you end up wasting a lot of money through that process. So we've got a healthy distrust of agencies. But that doesn't mean that we don't need them. Actually, in fact, we're right at that point whereby, I gave the analogy when we were in the pre-talk about the fact that I wouldn't consider. I mean, including agents, we've got 160 staff, and we couldn't manufacture the product if I only had 2 people making it or 2 people shipping it out. And yet I'm trying to run the marketing with 2 people. I mean, we've got a big creative team, so not that, but 2 people actually thinking about strategy.
As a business, it's a great business. You've got a great product. You're set up clearly. You've been in the trenches on Meta for a long time, and that's where you end up. You've got your metrics. You understand it. You're in it. You've got the creative team that can support it. You've got the expertise, and you've got frankly, the experience and the track record of doing it, and your gut is going to tell you. But with all of these platforms, you are going to reach a tipping point. And as you've seen and experienced this year, when you're doing $5,000 a day, it works. When you're doing 20, it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's and you're going to have that glass ceiling on every platform. And so for me, I look at this thing and,
But with someone else's help, you might be able to help us spend 10,000 quid a day.
And you can raise the glass ceiling.
We'd much rather, exactly.
So you can do that. And that's kind of one stream that and again, it's until you get a third party looking at it kind of going, well, what and why and how. And there might be things that you just can't see. I look at accounts all the time and I come in, I'm talking to a prospect right now who runs an amazing business. They're doing about 5 million online. They're really nice brands. And again, they gave me access. I looked at their account. I went in, this was only this week. And I went into their account and I looked at it and some things just jumped straight out of me because I'm fresh. I'm looking at it for the first time and I just went, what? Why this and how that and da-da-da. And I recorded them a video and I sent it over to them and I just said, look, this is just questions. I don't know. I haven't got the full context of the background, what and why. And he literally came back to me and he was like, oh my, he was like, I can't believe. He's like, we just couldn't see it.
I mean, we're not precious about it. For us, it's about, we run our business very much on, we just come into work each day and try and make it a little bit better. A little bit better each day. And if we can work with other people to turbocharge that growth, why wouldn't I do it? I mean,
But this is what. So Meta, as you say, it needs someone to have a look at it and kind of go, well, what and why? And it might be looking and go, no, you're doing everything right, fine. But with Google, or maybe it's not, but with Google, I don't even need to look at the data to absolutely cast iron guarantee you are missing a trick.
Well, you know from the spend, because you know, given most people now, when I read in the trade, most people would see the opposite split. So they would have big Google spend and a much smaller Meta spend. So on that basis, we could and should be spending tens of thousands of pounds a day on
you could, because the prerequisite with Google is there's a reason, they're one of the wealthiest companies in the world. There's a reason so many companies do spend
it works.
Millions. It does work, and so it is a fallacy to turn around and go, it doesn't work. And I know you're not saying that. You're just saying you haven't cracked it. It's not been a focus. But for you to grow this business, it needs to be.
Is an interesting point, because we've always had limited resources in the business, then we have tended to focus in on become obsessive about a very small number of things. So trying not to do lots of things, but get really good at one thing, and then we'd go after another thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly that. But that's it. That's where it's as I say, you haven't got that. It's the difference between you haven't got the expertise in house. No, so you're going to need to bring that in, and then it's in bringing that expertise in. That's going to then be a case of come up with a strategy, a plan for how we get this to market. Because the big thing with Google, which you haven't got with Meta, is that, as you said earlier, search intent. People are looking. If people are looking, it's you need to be there. It's crazy that you're not being. So I mean, I've just Googled now. What is your obviously your read reviews is your best selling product. What is the average price point on that?
So £10, say.
Right, amazing. So let's have a look. So if we go onto Google and we just Google for reed diffuser, I mean, firstly, let's have a look who's coming up. So Molten Brown's coming up. There's a few others, but in terms of...
if you Google reed diffusers with an S on, we would be first.
Okay, let's have a look.
But reed diffuser on its own, I think we're a bit further down.
Fine, but you'll notice...
But we're not. We're behind all the shopping. We're behind all the paid.
You're missing a trick. That's crazy. But this is why GSC is going to tell you this, because if you can see, and logic just...
It's insane.
If you can see tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of searches for reed diffuser, this, that, and the other, and all the synonyms and the various... I mean, there's bucket loads of them here.
Yeah.
And then you can see that who's coming up. And if your price point...
It does blow me away. Like it's
I'm going to get really annoyed in a minute, because this is like...
It's so, it's sometimes it's so obvious, isn't it?
It's so obvious. This is
we and I think what's prompted the conversation for us is that I touched on it when I about the form. I was watching someone on a podcast the other day, and he said in his business he spends 80% of his time growing the business, 20% of his time on operations. And when I think back over the last 2 years, actually, I've had. Partly because we'd grown so quickly through COVID, our systems had to catch up with how do we deal with that much stock? How do we deal with that many staff? And so on. So I found that it wasn't just 80%, I was probably spending 90 to 95% of my time operationally running the business, and only 5% of the time growing, which is insane.
Exactly, but it's a reality that our entire audience will be able to relate to, right? And this is what's happened. So you've been doing that because you need to operate the business, and then you've got your small marketing team that have been doing what everyone else does, is you stick to what you know. So you end up doing it, and then you end up getting yourself into a situation where you look at it and you suddenly going about, I'm spending £3 million on this, whereas I would argue that I'm just trying to think, almost if I think of our portfolio of clients, they are all pretty much spending more on Google than they are on Meta, because Google provides a better return, because there's search intent based on the products and services we're marketing. So for me, it is an absolute slam dunk, no brainer to be on shopping. Now, for me, this is not a case of if you should do Google. This is a case of you absolutely must.
We will.
You've got to do Google, right? And then go in,
we're there.
And do this in a pretty big way. But so for me, what you've then got to make sure that you're doing is, you're going to want to be on the shopping feed. Like if you're 10, 12, 15 pounds, you are right in the middle of this. Literally, you're actually on the lower end of this.
Well, it'd be cheaper than that. I mean,
amazing.
And that's our standard price. We would sell cheaper than that on special offers.
This is honestly, because, oh man, just right. Can we just stop recording?
I need to take a break.
I need to go and just get into this ad account. Oh my God. But honestly. It's such
a deep breath.
I know. I can't. It's just because I'm like, oh my God, this is just. I knew this was going to be fascinating because I knew you weren't doing it, but wow. But so I think ultimately, yeah, what you need to be doing is, you can leverage smart shopping. It's going to be great because it's just out and out smart. So and now, because actually Google's done a really good thing for you, because you can now split test on a more even keel, Performance Max versus shopping. So you absolutely need to be doing that. You exclude brand, you keep running you're spending a couple of £100 a day on brand, keep doing that. That works. But you've got to put, you're a £15 million business. You start doing Google properly. Oh my God. Like you will just open the taps. And remember as well that not everyone is going to buy, like with Meta, like with anything you do, but that is people that are actively looking, that then are going to come on the website, they're going to sign up, they're going to join the email list. They're that high tide is going to raise all the boats. You're going to see a correlation with all of that. And as you said, I keep coming back to it, but there are people that are actively looking, in that moment. So it's just an absolute no-brainer to be doing this. I'm actually kind of lost for words because I'm just like, it's such a no-brainer. I think this is probably one of the biggest, you've just got to do this.
Yeah.
Whether we do it, you get us to do it, you have to do this because you're probably leaving millions on the table.
Yeah. I can absolutely believe you. I love paid traffic. Paid traffic's fantastic. So if we can spend more money and grow the business, we'll be all over
that. But I think the other thing you need to do, is Google. Google is what it is. You've got to do that. But the other thing that, again, and it would go back to the GA4 thing that I think you've just absolutely got to do, is understand so what you're doing across social and email and all of that stuff, and organic. I think organic for you is an interesting one because
I do as well, because I think that we're massively missing a trick there.
Yeah.
And it's
I think GSC, Google Search Console, GSC is, again, you went in and you had a little look. I'll arm you with some things of what exactly to go and look for and have a look and do. As I say, excluding brand will be by excluding brand, you will see how people are finding you, what the most popular products are, and you're going to know that. But what you can do is you can then overlay the data to tell you.
Well, I was surprised to see us rank for wax melts, for argument's sake. So
right, exactly.
We were actually getting traffic from a wax melt.
And this is where it just gets so.
That's a massively valuable keyword.
This is where,
and we're ranking organically for it.
It just exactly that, and oh my God,
and not doing anything with that.
Viewers, just stick with me on this because honestly, if steam starts coming out my ears, just bear with me, right? But do you know what? And this is what's amazing. This is where it just gets so powerful. Is if you use Google Search Console, so like the wax melts, right? Now, what you can do. So where are they on the website? I just want to show you because this is just going to be amazing.
Under home fragrance,
right? Home fragrance
and wax melts.
Right, wax. Okay, amazing. So what you can do in Google Search Console is you could basically take this URL, so it's /home-fragrance /wax-melts, right? You can take that. You can basically filter, as well as by keyword and by query, you can filter by page.
Okay.
Right? So, and this is where it just becomes absolute gold. Because I would imagine, when you looked at your GSC, were you seeing hundreds of thousands of clicks and millions of impressions, yeah? I would imagine you probably were.
Yes.
Oh my God. Right. So you take this and then here we go. Thank you. I'm gonna hug this. I'm gonna need it. There you go. Right. Honestly, right. This is sticking with me for the rest of the episode. No, it's not. It's not. Right. I'm putting that down there because I think we might actually need it. Right. Anyway, thank you for that. We're going to need it. So, but what you can do, you filter by this page essentially, and
just for the audio, for the audio listeners.
What's going on?
Well, yeah. So I just for people listening, I just brought a fire extinguisher in just in case Erin's head explodes.
Lights up, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to hug it for the rest of the show. Right, but so basically, you can filter by each page, and the reason that's so great is you can then get all of the queries for what this page is visible, how people search. You can essentially reverse engineer the organic visibility of this page.
Yep.
That's going to, give you ideas for how you can better optimize, etc. Because I think you could better optimize these pages. From an on-page perspective, it just says wax melts, your brand. That's it. You could make that work 10 times harder just from an on-page SEO basics. But better than that, even more interesting, is the data and the insights that you can gather from this means that you've got a ready-made keyword list of what you could apply for Google Ads.
Yeah.
And you also know how to better optimize your products in terms of product titles. So, and this is where the two can cross-compete. So for example, I can see so many ways you can improve this website. So, for example, at the moment, if I've just clicked into one of your products, what you've got here, you need to basically make sure that you're saying very clearly, reading left to right, what the product is. Whereas at the moment, that's the wrong way. So you've put wax melts right at the very end of the product names.
Oh,
here,
interesting. Yeah,
right?
okay.
Whereas the way that would feed into so if you think from a
Do you want it first?
From a shopping perspective, right? If I'm Googling wax melts,
I want to see wax melts.
it needs
so
to
I know
see
it's
what I'm
talking
at,
to
because
me.
then it says this is the picture of the product. Oh, it's a wax melt, and then here's the price. They're the three things. Whereas if you have a really long title, as you've done here for some of these, the actual wax melt is going to be
right at the end,
right? Not even
cut off.
It's going to be cut off on a shopping thing. So you see how you can use that data, but you could then by you could get it in minutes by pulling this off and then put that and use that for Google Ads. And you could then do that in terms of if you're going to run search campaigns, if you're going to run Performance Max, it based on how you optimize your product titles, it based on the custom labels you apply for your feed. Like the options you just go off and off and off. And all of that, and you could then even see category by category, page by page, where you get the most search, which in turn would lead into, and that would facilitate and tell you the structure of how you should be structuring your campaigns, the different ad sets you should be running, and all of that. So it's that kind of intel that you need would feed your ability to then really go to town on Google Ads.
Yeah. Because ultimately we know our back-end model works. So we've proven all that. Now it's just, I agree with you. I think there's a huge opportunity.
There is a massive opportunity. If you're based on what you're spending on Meta and without even seeing the data, but based on the sort of numbers you're telling me, it's huge. There's such an opportunity here. And I think it's understanding that split between paid, but then also organically. I think organic needs to feed paid. Paid can feed organic. It's so powerful because even when you start doing paid, so Google Ads more aggressively, you will get so much rich data from that that you can use to better optimize your website. You can use it to then better optimize your meta ads. You know how people are searching. You can create even more targeted creative. You can then go to town with your retargeting. I mean, the list just goes on.
But I think that raises, because I originally came to talk to you because I felt like that we needed overall advice. It wasn't purely advice on running ads. So I think that's what where we're going to now in the context of this. But I think the value that you bring is a much more broad approach to be able to advise both a business of our size, but also a smaller business.
Yeah, well, I'll say we've got businesses from doing their first few 100,000 up to many millions and everything in between. And as we discussed before, is one of the things that we've done from an SEO perspective and from looking at is we've always been really quite good, I think, of looking at the big picture, not operating just in silo. And often, people phone us and they reach out and they go, we want Google ads or we want meta ads, or this, that. I go, no, you don't. You don't want meta ads. You want sales, right? That's ultimately what you want. Yeah. You want sales, you want results, you want leads. But
you're unusual as an agency to be concurrently talking about that, because a lot of agencies we interact with a lot of agencies, like they'll approach us to do business and they don't necessarily
they don't think about the business.
They don't really care about the business. They just care about billing.
People, because, and this is not a criticism of most marketers, this is a fact. Most marketers, most agencies, most contractors, most people, they operate in their lane. And so they want to talk about what they're selling, right? And so for me, I've always made a point of going, look, we pay the bills by selling paid media. That's Google ads, but and meta ads, etc. But every episode of this pod, pretty much, I bang on about going, look, it's great, and if what we do is work, right for your business, great, let's have a chat or whatever. But ultimately, I absolutely do not advocate you as a business being solely reliant on that. You don't want to be a one-trick pony.
It's very dangerous.
You don't want to just be, and so we look at the big picture
as an example of where that can be destructive. My Justina, who I run this business with, had an old Etsy business, making jewelry.
Yep.
And she'd done that alongside the Valente for a long time, and she was getting very busy. And she thought, well, I'll give that business to my niece,
right?
So that she could take that. She's a university student, just about to go to university. Nice thing for her to take on. You cannot pass on an Etsy business to anybody else. So you've built an Etsy business. Wow. Etsy will not let you transfer that. So they are saying, build a business on our platform. Use a business on our platform. They won't let you transfer that. Amazing. So the only solution is to start a new shop. Well, then you lose all the traction. You lose all the credit history. And I think you have to be very careful building a business on the back of someone else's
Absolutely.
traffic. It's not your traffic.
You don't own it. You don't own it.
And it can be taken away.
But that same sentiment is true. And it's why, smart businesses need to be mindful that they don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. No. You do not want to be reliant. And it's exactly why more than a decade ago, I wrote a principle which I call the backbone of digital marketing. And that is very simple. It's a case of saying, understand how reliant you are on the traffic that you buy, the traffic that you own, the traffic that you are nurturing, and the traffic that you earn. Yeah. Because of all of those, it's only the traffic that you own that you own. Yeah. Right? And the others, the stuff you're nurturing is your email list, which is something you own, but then it's the social media platforms, which you don't own. Facebook can close your page down tomorrow.
And they do. Right?
And they Google can shut your ad account off tomorrow. And so you need to make sure you're not overly reliant on any one channel. And also, just because it's good business sense, a lot of people want to talk to social, like you don't want to have more than 10% of your revenue from any one customer.
The difficulty comes with small businesses, and I put us in that category while we were growing, is that it's very difficult to be an expert in lots of things. Yeah. So there's a bias towards doubling down on what you're good at or what you've gradually figured out. So I think you actually become more and more reliant unless you have that realization that actually we need to stop. Yep. We need to stop doing that. It happens progressively.
And it does. And without you realizing, and suddenly you wake up and go, oh my God. Yeah. And that's exactly why when I talk to prospects, I say to them, well, how reliant are you? And then if they don't know, I say, well, we're not even talking ads until we understand where your business sits, how reliant you are, because that's going to show, we have a problem here. It's like doing a SWOT analysis for your business. Let's understand our strengths and our weaknesses, and then from there you can understand what opportunities, what threats do we have, and so on. And that is key. And so I think for you, if analyzing your data, whatever you're using now, getting GA4 set up, looking at the way attribution now works, but actually trying to get a real picture, of how reliant are our sales, and you could get that, pretty conclusive idea of that within 90 days to 180 days. Getting that picture is going to be really vital for you, because then, for me, I would look at this and go, right, if we can leverage and maximize Google, we're going to grow the business, but we're also diluting our absolute reliance from a pay perspective on Meta. That's only a good thing. That's only a good thing. Then I'd be looking at it from an email perspective, right? How important is our email list? You think it's very important? It probably is very important. How important? Is it kind of for a third more? How important is it? And then from an organic perspective, right? How visible are we? How important is organic to our business? But outside of
I think
brands,
we're massively reliant on email. I think it's. I think we'd be shocked by that.
But then if you are massively reliant on, for me, if you are massively reliant on email, and I know that Meta will be feeding the email.
That also is problematic because that causes us to email more frequently. So we churn through our list because we're very reliant on it. And driving sales from that, so we accept a far higher unsubscribe rate than actually we probably ought to be, because we're emailing more than we should. But it makes sense
because what you're doing is you're driving visibility in through Meta, who, it's an amazing platform. We love it. We do masses of it. But these people are not actively searching, right? That, it's interruption marketing, right? So you're doing that. Whereas, and what you're not doing is Google is a top of funnel activity, right? It's a top of funnel. It's driving people in when they're searching. It's a case of, hey, we provide that product. You're not doing much of that.
No.
Well, you are, but only for the people that know you.
Yes.
So all the people that are going on that don't know you, right, that are buying from your competitors, that are actively looking, you're not bringing them into the top of funnel.
It also highlights a different problem in our business, which we're actually very bad at selling. We've got a very big range, but we're actually very bad at selling our other products because we're so reliant on email. What that actually causes, our basic promotional strategy is to take 8 of our products and discount them each day. Right. So we tend to do that on our best-selling products because they have the highest uplift of performance. So we then struggle to sell across our range, not because those products aren't good, but because they're unsupported by us.
But this is where, and this is exactly why it comes back to using GSC, Google Search Console, to reverse engineer how do people find those products, and then with Google Ads, you have an out-and-out campaign that focuses on that, and then you measure it in isolation, and you then use that. You go, this really works, and we can scale it up. And that's really what you've got to do. And then you split it. You look at the products, and that's another way you would structure this ad account. Is you're not going to just turn around and go, well, we're just going to create one massive shopping campaign, and put everything in it. You would identify your best sellers, your key lines, because that's going to be a cash cow. But also then, right, these are the other lines we want to experiment, want to try. And so you can isolate them and just go, right, we're going to essentially run an experiment. So you run category by category, and then within that, you're split testing Performance Max versus shopping.
Because we've been thinking about taking other areas of our range and putting them into standalone brands, because we couldn't find a way of supporting them in our ad spend. Whereas if we put it into a standalone
But you're only
brand,
talking Meta.
Exactly.
But this,
so which is again the weakness.
And that's it, because
we didn't do that, but that's what we've been discussing for next year.
But it's because you're so focused on Meta
and email and our top-selling products.
Because it's like a drug. You get addicted to it. It's like a drug. You get addicted to it.
And email's like a drug. You send.
Absolutely,
you know,
it is.
we've
It's
got
all like a drug.
350,000 people on your email list. You press send, and
then money comes in.
Money comes in. That is like a drug.
But that's where you end up because it's big, and Google Ads becomes a drug. It all becomes addictive. But
you need balance.
But you need balance. You need balance, and you need
definitely
to. And you're because you don't have the expertise, because you've tried it and then kind of convinced yourself, it doesn't work.
Yes.
You know, you're going. You've almost written that off.
You know how insane that sounds.
It is insane.
As I say,
it is
that
insane.
I know that.
Yeah.
You know, but you get bogged down. Don't you?
But
the blinkers come
on. For me, you should be really excited by this, because you've got you are sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah.
You know, in an opportunity, this is incredible. You know, you've got so much. You need to go, and we need to look at your ad account basically, and then look at GSC and reverse engineer that and work out the right strategy to market, and then open up tabs. This is honestly. We need to have a serious chat afterwards, which we do. And what I'm going to say, and I don't say this very often, is what I would love to do, if you'd be up for it, is would you come back on the pod in 6 months?
Yeah.
Right. Because I would say a year, but you're not even going to need a year. You literally get 6 months. Yeah. I think if you do this, do what I'm saying, 6 months. Oh my days.
Definitely.
6 months. Should we redo this?
Yeah.
We'll do part 2. You heard it here. We will do part 2, because this has been utterly fascinating. I'm honestly blown away.
I think this is the most animated pod we've ever done.
I'm just like, it's amazing. I mean, it's been brilliant.
I've really enjoyed it.
Good. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for giving it your time. I really appreciate it. It's a great business. Valente, check it out online. And very soon you will be finding them on Google much more prominently than you are right now, believe me, outside of brand. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming on. Been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Right, there you go. I need to go and have another glass of water, because my throat is very hoarse. Fascinating. Darren, thank you for getting me the extinguisher. Luckily, we didn't need it. We came very close. Utterly fascinating. Right, I need to go and have a chat to Luke, and we need to wrap this one up here. Thanks so much. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.